40,000 years ago, Earth was a very different planet. Vast sheets of ice covered the northern hemisphere, stretching from North America to Eurasia. Glaciers towered 3 kilometers high and moved like slow rivers of stone, grinding mountains into dust. Average global temperatures were 10 degrees colder than today. Sea levels were more than 100 meters lower. Where modern cities stand now, endless tundra once spread beneath grey skies. This was the last glacial maximum, the peak of the Ice Age, a world of cold, wind and survival, the rhythm of ice. The Earth's climate has never been still. For 2.5 million years, it has cycled between glacial and warm periods. These rhythms are driven by tiny changes in our orbit around the Sun, the Milankovitch cycles. When the planet's tilt lessens and its orbit elongates, less sunlight reaches the northern hemisphere. Snow from the previous winter no longer melts in summer, and glaciers expand. Over millennia, white ice reflects more sunlight back into space, cooling the Earth even further. A planet of extremes. While ice ruled the north, the rest of the world changed too. Deserts spread across Africa and Asia. Rainforests shrank. Savannas grew. Sea levels fell so far that continents connected. Siberia and Alaska became one, the land bridge called Beringia. Australia, New Guinea and Tasmania joined into Zahul. Animals and eventually humans crossed these bridges, reshaping evolution's map. Life in the cold. The Ice Age was not lifeless. It was an age of giants. Woolly mammoths roamed the Eurasian steppe, their tusks sweeping through snow. Herds of bison, horses and musk oxen moved with the seasons. Predators followed, cave lions, saber-toothed cats, dire wolves. Further south, where the climate softened, rhinoceroses and elephants survived along rivers that no longer exist. Even in the seas, life flourished. Plankton blooms, cold water whales, and seals riding the ice. Humans in a frozen world. During this era, humanity shared the planet with other species. Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, and our own ancestors in Africa. All were shaped by the same cold. They built fires against the dark, crafted fur clothing, and carved tools from stone and bone. In the glow of their torches, they painted the animals they hunted on cave walls, the first echoes of art and memory. The Ice Age forced humans to cooperate, to plan, to imagine. Out of hardship came creativity and culture, engines of climate. What made the world freeze so deeply? Tiny changes in Earth's orbit set the tempo, but other forces amplified the song. Volcanic eruptions released ash that darkened the sky, lowering temperatures for years. Falling carbon dioxide locked heat away in the oceans. Ocean currents shifted, carrying warm water south and leaving the north to freeze. Everything was connected. Air, ice, and sea moved as one system in delicate balance. Beauty and silence. To stand on the ice was to hear the planet breathe. The groan of a glacier moving inches a day, the crack of frozen rivers at midnight. Above, auroras painted the sky in green and violet light. Even in its harshest moments, the Ice Age was beautiful, a world of silence and endurance. The turning point, around 130,000 years ago, the first major thaw began. Ice retreated, forests returned. For a short geological moment, Earth warmed again, but the cold would return, stronger than before, leading to the last glacial maximum, the pinnacle of frozen time, in the beginning of our story as a global species. The Great Thaw. 20,000 years ago, the Ice Age reached its height. Glaciers stretched across a third of the planet. The world was locked in cold silence. And then, Slowly, the balance shifted. A small increase in sunlight in the northern hemisphere began to tip the scale. Snow melted earlier each summer. Ice reflected less light. Dark rock and open ocean absorbed more heat. The earth began to warm. A planet in motion, glaciers started to retreat. Across North America, the great Laurentide ice sheet broke apart, releasing floods that carved canyons and lakes. In Europe, ice withdrew from the plains of Germany and Poland. Mountains emerged from beneath the frost after tens of thousands of years in darkness. Everywhere, rivers roared with meltwater. Sea levels began to rise, first centimetres, then metres, then tens of metres. Low-lying valleys filled with water. Ancient coastlines vanished beneath the waves. Within only 8,000 years, the ocean had climbed more than 100 metres. The continents we know today took shape, the drowning of the world. For humans living near the coasts, the change was dramatic. Villages built beside rivers were swallowed by new seas. Islands appeared where mountains once rose from dry plains. In Southeast Asia, the great landmass of Sunda flooded, creating thousands of islands, modern Indonesia. To the north, the Bering Land Bridge disappeared beneath the Arctic Ocean, cutting Asia from America. In the Mediterranean, meltwater broke through the Bosporus, flooding a vast inland lake, what many believe became the Black Sea. Stories of great floods echo through the world's oldest myths. Perhaps they remember this moment, when ice gave way to water and the map of Earth was redrawn. The collapse of giants. As the world warmed, the age of the megafauna ended. Woolly mammoths, mastodons, giant sloths, and saber-toothed cats vanished within a few thousand years. Their disappearance was no single event. It was a slow unravelling. Climate, stress, shrinking habitat, and the arrival of a new and clever predator, humans. Archaeological sites across Siberia and North America show clear signs of hunting. Spears tipped with flint, bones marked by blades. As people spread, the great herds retreated and then were gone. The loss of these animals changed the land itself. Without mammoths to trample snow and open grass, forests expanded. Dark trees absorbed more sunlight, accelerating the warming already underway. New rivers, new skies. With the ice retreating, the planet's atmosphere grew wetter. Rain replaced snow. Rivers carved new paths across continents. Lakes that had been trapped beneath glaciers burst their icy dams in cataclysmic floods. One such flood, in what is now the northwestern United States, released more water than all modern rivers combined. It scoured the land, leaving behind the canyons and rock basins of the channeled scablands, silent monuments to the power of melting ice. In the oceans, the changing currents redistributed heat. The great conveyor system that carries warm water north stabilized the climate. For the first time in tens of thousands of years, seasons returned to balance. Humans take root. As the ice retreated, humans followed. They moved into the newly opened valleys of Europe and Asia, hunting, gathering, and adapting to each shifting landscape. Along the Nile and the Euphrates, fertile plains formed from glacial dust. The first permanent settlements appeared near rivers fed by meltwater. In these places, people began to plant seeds, the earliest steps toward agriculture. The end of the Ice Age did not just warm the planet, it reshaped civilization. With stable seasons and reliable rainfall, farming replaced foraging. Villages became towns, and human history, as we know it, began. The sea rises higher, even as humanity flourished, the oceans kept climbing. By 9000 BC, Coastlines had advanced inland by hundreds of kilometres. Coral reefs drowned, coastal forests turned to seafloor. In the North Atlantic, icebergs still drifted, cooling the water and shaping weather patterns that persist to this day. Antarctica, meanwhile, remained encased in ice, the last frozen remnant of a glacial world. Its vast white surface reflected sunlight, stabilizing Earth's temperature and marking the boundary between the age of ice and the age of man. The memory of ice. The legacy of that ancient cold is still visible. Valleys in Norway and New Zealand bear the U-shaped scars of glaciers. Boulders carried hundreds of kilometres rest on plains where no mountain exists. In Greenland and Antarctica, the ice still holds a record of every snowfall, layers stacked like pages in a book. By drilling deep into those sheets, scientists can read the story of climate itself, volcanic eruptions, carbon fluctuations, even traces of prehistoric pollen. Each layer tells us how fragile balance truly is. Closing of Part 2. When the Ice Age ended, it left behind more than land and water. It left the foundation of everything that would follow. The climate that nurtured civilization, the rivers that became borders, the memory of a planet that can change completely. The story of the Ice Age is not just a history of cold, it is a reminder that Earth is never still, and that the forces which once buried continents in ice still move quietly beneath our feet. The rise of modern climate. By 10,000 BC, the long reign of ice had ended. The glaciers had retreated toward the poles, leaving behind lakes, fertile plains, and new coastlines. Earth entered what scientists call the Holocene, a period of relative warmth and stability that continues today. The transformation was global. In North America, the immense meltwaters of the Laurentide ice sheet filled basins that became the Great Lakes. In Europe, forests reclaimed lands that had been bare tundra for thousands of years. The Mediterranean region warmed, rain returned, and grasslands flourished. For the first time in millions of years, the planet's climate reached a balance gentle enough to nurture civilization. The birth of the modern world human societies began to change. In the Fertile Crescent, a stretch of land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, people learned to cultivate barley and wheat. With food storage came villages, and with villages came social order. In China, rice farming took root along the Yangtze. In Central America, maize and beans began their long journey toward domestication. Humanity was no longer at the mercy of the changing seasons. It had learned to shape them. As populations grew, people built permanent homes, traded goods, and developed rituals to honour the land and sky that sustained them. Every civilization that followed, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, from the Indus Valley to the Americas, was born from the stability that the end of the Ice Age had brought, the ghosts of ice. Though the great sheets were gone, their legacy remained visible. Beneath the soil, the planet still carried the scars of their retreat. The crust of the earth slowly rose, rebounding from the weight that had once pressed it down. Rivers adjusted their courses to new landscapes. In northern Europe and Canada, entire regions that once lay beneath glaciers were still slowly lifting, rising millimetre by millimetre each year. This movement continues today, a quiet echo of ancient pressure. Far beneath the surface, groundwater trapped by melting ice carved vast subterranean channels. Lakes formed and vanished again. In these shifting systems, the fingerprints of the Ice Age remain permanent, even as the world above moves forward. The return of warmth. As temperatures stabilised, vegetation spread northward. Birch, pine and oak forests expanded across Eurasia. Herds of deer and wild horses followed the greenery. Wolves and bears returned to hunt. The changing environment also allowed humans to explore new frontiers. In the north, small groups ventured into regions that had been frozen wastelands only centuries earlier. The descendants of these pioneers became the first people of the Arctic. Elsewhere, the Sahara Desert was not yet a desert. It was a vast green plain crossed by rivers and dotted with lakes. Animals such as giraffes, elephants, and hippos thrived there, and early humans painted them on cave walls, proof that they had once lived side by side. For thousands of years the Sahara was fertile. Then, slowly, the rains shifted south. The grasslands faded, the rivers dried, and one of Earth's great transformations began, the birth of the desert as we know it today. The oceans of change. With the melting of ice came the reshaping of coastlines. New shallow seas formed where land had once existed. The North Sea filled, isolating Britain from mainland Europe. The Baltic became a brackish basin of salt and fresh water. In the Pacific, coral reefs flourished in warm, clear waters. Marine life diversified again, reclaiming the continental shelves that had been exposed during the glacial maximum. Whales migrated further north, following the plankton blooms stirred by the warmer currents. At the same time, rising seas forced human populations to adapt. Fishing communities developed along new coasts. Simple boats and rafts evolved into vessels capable of exploration. Step by step, humankind began to rediscover the world, not by foot, but by sea. The earth breathes again. The end of the Ice Age released enormous amounts of fresh water into the oceans, altering the planet's balance. For a time, scientists believed the influx disrupted major ocean currents, causing temporary cooling events. One such event, known as the Younger Dryas, struck roughly 12,900 years ago. Temperatures plummeted across the northern hemisphere. Glaciers briefly advanced. Forests shrank once more. It lasted for over 1,000 years before warming returned. The cause of the Younger Dryas remains debated. Some researchers suggest it was triggered by meltwater disrupting the Atlantic currents. Others believe a comet or meteor impact might have played a role. Whatever the cause, it was a reminder that Earth's climate could still shift with astonishing speed. When it ended, the modern climate system, the one we depend on today, finally stabilized. The world takes shape. By 8000 BC, the outlines of continents, oceans and ecosystems looked much as they do now. Rainforests spread through South America and Central Africa. The polar caps retreated to their current positions. Coastal plains became deltas rich in nutrients. It was a world transformed, and yet the traces of its icy past lay just below the surface. In caves, paintings told of hunts across frozen plains. In myths, stories of great floods and lost lands survived through generations. For early humans, memory of the Ice Age lingered in legend. For modern science, that memory is written in stone and ice. The last survivors, not all creatures of the cold vanished. A few adapted and endured. Musk oxen, caribou, and Arctic foxes still roam the tundra. In the oceans, seals and whales continue their ancient migrations between ice and open sea. The mammoths' relatives, the elephants, survived by moving into warmer climates. Their distant cousins, preserved in Siberian permafrost, still hold DNA so intact that scientists can read their genetic code. The story of a species that once ruled the frozen world. Some researchers even explore whether such DNA could one day bring these animals back, not as legends, but as living witnesses to the ice age that made us. Closing of Part 3. The retreat of the ice marked more than the end of a cold era. It marked the beginning of everything familiar. Forests, rivers, coasts, and civilizations built upon them. Earth had thawed, but it never forgot. Beneath our feet, in the rocks and the ice cores, lies the memory of that time. A record of a planet that can transform itself completely and yet find balance again. The story of the Ice Age was not only about survival in cold, it was about renewal in warmth. It was the story of a planet rediscovering its rhythm, and of a species learning to live in harmony with the changing Earth. Legacy of the Ice. The Ice Age never truly ended. It simply released its grip. Today's polar caps, glaciers, and frozen tundra are the final breath of that ancient world. Every mountain glacier in the Alps, the Andes, or the Himalayas is a fragment of a once global engine of ice. The cold sculpted our continents. It carved valleys like Yosemite, shaped the fjords of Norway, and created the Great Lakes of North America. The soil that feeds modern agriculture was ground from rock by glaciers. Even the rivers that define our geography, the Rhine, the Thames, the Mississippi, follow paths set by melting ice more than 10,000 years ago. Without the Ice Age, there would be no fertile plains, no freshwater lakes, and perhaps no human civilization at all. The climate we inherited when the last great glaciers withdrew, Earth entered an unusually stable period. For nearly 12,000 years, the planet's temperature has varied only slightly. This stability allowed farming, cities, and technology to flourish. Human culture depends on that narrow band of comfort. But geological time teaches a humbling lesson. Stability is temporary. The same forces that froze the planet still operate quietly. The tilt of our axis, the shape of our orbit, the chemistry of our air. Left alone, Earth would one day slide again toward cold. Yet, for the first time, a single species has the power to alter that path. Echoes in ice deep within the ice of Greenland and Antarctica lies the archive of the planet's memory. Scientists drill through layers that record each winter's snow, each eruption, each breath of ancient air. Bubbles trapped inside reveal the composition of the atmosphere stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Those records show the rhythm of glacial cycles, rise and fall, freeze and thaw, repeating with perfect precision until the modern age. Then, about 2 centuries ago, the pattern breaks. Carbon dioxide levels begin to soar beyond anything seen in that long history. The new signal in the ice is unmistakable. Us, the planet that remembers. Every time a glacier melts, it reveals fossils, pollen, and artifacts sealed in ice for millennia. In the Alps, the body of a man preserved for 5,000 years, known as Utsi, emerged from retreating ice. In Siberia, mammoths still lie frozen with grass in their mouths. In Canada, forests long buried under permafrost are reappearing, their wood intact. The planet remembers everything. It hides its past until warmth unlocks it. And as the ice retreats again, the world reveals not only what once was, but what may come next. Lessons of the past. The Ice Age teaches that climate can change dramatically, even without human influence. A shift of only a few degrees can transform continents. Sea levels can rise or fall by hundreds of meters. Ecosystems can vanish and new ones emerge. For ancient humans, these shifts were matters of survival. For modern humans, they are matters of choice. We can see the consequences written in stone and ice and decide whether we repeat them. Our technology now releases carbons into the air faster than any volcanic cycle in history. If unchecked, the warmth that ended the Ice Age could pale beside what lies ahead. The same seas that once drowned ancient valleys are rising again. The difference is that this time the cause is not orbital motion or solar rhythm. It is us, the shape of the future. If the glaciers of Greenland and Antarctica were to melt completely, sea levels would rise more than 60 meters. Coastal cities from New York to Shanghai would disappear. Ocean currents would shift. Weather patterns that feed our crops could fail. Yet, the story of the Ice Age offers hope. The planet has recovered before. It has endured extremes greater than any we can imagine. Life has adapted, evolved, and flourished after every crisis. The question is not whether Earth will survive. It is whether we will thrive with it or without it. Epilogue. Look at the world today. The mountains, the rivers, the soil beneath our feet, all are gifts of the Ice Age. The cold that once seemed endless gave us the landscape on which history would unfold, and though the glaciers have mostly vanished, their legacy endures in every drop of water that flows from the mountains, in every valley carved by their weight, in every memory of a planet that once slept beneath snow. The Ice Age was not an ending, it was a beginning, the moment Earth prepared itself for us, and as the last remnants of that ancient cold fade away, the story continues, written not in stone or ice, but in the choices of those who now walk the world it left behind.